The rhythmic hum of the monitoring station's ventilation system had become white noise to Dr. Elena Vasily after 3 years on Europa. Outside the reinforced windows, Jupiter's massive form dominated the sky, its swirling storms a constant reminder of the universe's beautiful violence. Inside, humanity's most sophisticated deep space listening array parsed the cosmos, searching for voices in the dark. It was during Elena's night shift when the anomaly appeared, a pattern too regular to be natural, too complex to be dismissed. At first, she thought the system was malfunctioning. Thomas, run a diagnostic on Array 7. She called to her assistant, who was half asleep at his console. I'm getting something strange. Thomas Reyes blinked away his fatigue. Array 7 is functioning within normal parameters, Doctor. What are you seeing? Elena frowned, her dark eyes reflecting the dancing wavelengths on her screen. It's a repeating sequence, but it's evolving. Each repetition contains minor variations, like what? Like someone trying different words to make themselves understood. Within hours, the entire station was awake. The signal continued unabated, growing stronger as their systems automatically refined their focus on its source. A star system in the Andromeda Galaxy, over 2.5 million light-years away. This can't be natural, said Dr. Kenjiro Himura, the station's astronomer. And if it's artificial, then whoever sent it has technology far beyond our own. The power requirements to transmit across intergalactic space. Commander Hassan Rahman, the military liaison, voiced what they were all thinking. Or they're desperate enough to use everything they had. For 3 weeks, the best minds on Europa worked without rest. Linguists analyzed patterns, mathematicians searched for prime number sequences, physicists studied the signal's quantum characteristics. Earth governments were notified, but kept the information classified to prevent panic. Humanity had never confirmed intelligent alien life before. Their first contact couldn't be a distress call. The breakthrough came during Elena's analysis of what the team had dubbed the punctuation markers, brief pauses in the transmission that seemed to separate elements of the message. They're not punctuation, she announced during the daily briefing. They're emotional indicators. She played back the signal, modified to audible frequencies. Listen to the micro variations in these segments. The room fell silent as the eerie, almost musical sounds played through the speakers. Fear. Elena pointed to her display. Urgency. Desperation. We've been approaching this like it's a mathematical or linguistic puzzle, but it's not. It's emotional communication. Working with the station's psychologists, Elena developed a new translation matrix based not on logic, but on emotional resonance patterns. When they applied it to the signal, the message took shape. Not in words, but in concepts and images that their systems struggled to render into human language. The Tyranni were dying. Their civilization, ancient when humans were still perfecting stone tools, faced an expanding region of altered spacetime they called the Void. It consumed matter, energy, and even the laws of physics themselves. Their most advanced technology had failed to halt its growth. And they weren't asking for technology or weapons. The images showed their children, their history, their art, the things they wanted preserved. They were saying goodbye to the universe. But there was something else in the signal too. Coordinates, a path through space, a desperate hope that someone, anyone, might come. They don't expect to be saved. Elena said softly as the final translation appeared on screen. They just don't want to die alone. Commander Rahman stood up, his face grave. I need to contact Earth immediately. This isn't just a discovery anymore. As the transmission to Earth began, Elena stared at Jupiter through the window, wondering if humanity, young, fractious, barely spacefaring humanity, could possibly answer this call from across the stars. The United Earth Council chamber hadn't been this full since the Mars colony crisis 3 years earlier. Representatives from every nation, colony, and orbital habitat sat in tense silence as Dr. Elena Vasily finished presenting her findings. The holographic display above the central podium showed the translated imagery from the Tsirani distress call. Beautiful crystalline cities being consumed by an expanding darkness. In conclusion, Elena said, her voice steady despite her exhaustion, "We believe this is a genuine distress call from an advanced civilization facing extinction. Their technology appears to be centuries beyond our own, yet they lack the means to combat this void phenomenon." Director Chang of the Science Directorate was the first to speak after her presentation. "While the discovery is unprecedented, I must emphasize that our faster-than-light technology remains experimental. The UES Prometheus has completed only 3 short-range tests. To attempt an intergalactic journey would be impossible." General Santos interrupted. "Even if we could reach them, what exactly does humanity hope to offer a species that's clearly our technological superior? This could be a trap, or worse, we could be exposing ourselves to whatever cosmic horror is destroying them." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Economic advisors warned about the resource drain. Colonial representatives worried about defense capabilities being diverted from human settlements. Medical experts questioned compatibility with alien biology. Behind it all hung the unspoken question: why should humans risk everything for aliens no one had ever met? Admiral Hiroshi Yamamoto, the 70-year-old commander of Earth's Deep Space Fleet, rose slowly from his seat. The chamber quieted as he approached the podium, his weathered face grave beneath his shock of white hair. 50 years ago, he began. I was a rescue pilot during the Indonesian sea rise. My team pulled survivors from flooded cities while nations argued about climate quotas. He paused, his eyes scanning the chamber. I watched people die while we waited for permission to help. He gestured toward the holographic display of the dying alien civilization. Look at what they sent us. Not their military capabilities or technological achievements, but their culture, their children, their hopes. They're not asking for salvation. They're asking to be remembered. Yamamoto's voice grew stronger. Humanity's history is written in blood and fire. We faced plagues, wars, environmental collapse, and survived. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because we refused to surrender to inevitability. He looked directly at General Santos. What do we have that they might need? Perhaps the very thing that brought us to the stars despite all odds. Our relentless determination to find another way when all logical paths are exhausted. The Admiral straightened his shoulders. We call ourselves an enlightened, unified Earth. But enlightenment isn't measured by the conflicts we avoid. It's measured by the strangers we're willing to help, even at great cost to ourselves. Silence held the chamber for several heartbeats. The Prometheus can be ready in 3 weeks, said Commander Esther Okonkwo, the ship's chief engineer. The modified drive has theoretical capability for the journey, though we'd be pushing well beyond tested parameters. President Alvarez of the Council looked around the chamber. This is not merely a technical decision, but a moral one. Who are we as a species if we hear a cry for help across the cosmos and choose to turn away? The vote, when it came, was far from unanimous. Nations with greater investment in the Prometheus project objected the strongest. Colonial representatives feared leaving Earth vulnerable. But when the final tally appeared, the result was clear. Humanity would answer the call. As the chamber emptied, Dr. Vasily approached Admiral Yamamoto. "Do you really think we can help them?" she asked quietly. The old admiral smiled faintly. "I think we can try, and sometimes that's the most human thing of all." Captain Amara Okafor stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching Earth shrink to a pale blue dot. At 43, she had commanded exploration vessels beyond Neptune, but nothing had prepared her for this mission. No human had ventured beyond the Kuiper Belt, let alone attempted to cross the void between galaxies. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Kasim Rahman joined her at the viewport, his eyes reflecting the starscape. As the ship's theoretical physicist, he had helped design the experimental drive that might, emphasis on might, get them to Andromeda. Beautiful and terrifying, Amara admitted. Ready to make history, Doctor. Raman smiled thinly. Let's focus on making it there alive first. The Prometheus carried a crew of 38, Earth's finest scientists, engineers, linguists, and soldiers. They represented 17 nations and 4 off-world colonies, a microcosm of humanity selected not just for expertise, but for psychological resilience. The journey would take 7 months by their subjective time. For Earth, nearly 3 years would pass due to relativistic effects, assuming the drive worked at all. Lieutenant Commander Javier Rodriguez, the ship's pilot, voice came over the comm. Captain to the bridge. We're approaching jump coordinates. The bridge hummed with tense energy as Amara took her seat. The main display showed their position at the edge of the solar system. Drive status, she asked. Commander Wai Chen, chief engineer, answered from his station. Fold generators at optimal temperature. Quantum stabilizers aligned. The core is as ready as it's ever going to be, Captain. Amara nodded. Dr. Raman, final assessment. Raman hesitated. The simulations show a 78% chance of successful transit. Beyond that, he shrugged. We're literally rewriting physics as we go. Comforting, Amara said dryly. She opened the ship-wide channel. All hands, secure for fold transit. We are about to attempt humanity's first intergalactic jump. The countdown began. Amara felt the subtle vibration through her chair as the drive spooled up, bending space-time around the ship. This was the moment of truth. Either the drive would create a stable wormhole, or they would be scattered across several dimensions. 3, 2, 1. Transit. The universe turned inside out. Later, crew members would struggle to describe the experience. Some reported seeing colors that shouldn't exist. Others heard impossible harmonies or felt the brush of non-Euclidean geometries against their skin. For 16 excruciating seconds, the Prometheus existed partially outside normal space-time. Then reality snapped back. Transit complete, Rodriguez announced, his voice shaky. We're nowhere near the solar system. The view screen showed an unfamiliar starscape. Initial readings suggested they traveled nearly 90,000 light-years, an impressive feat, but nowhere near Andromeda. The fold collapsed prematurely, Raman said, scanning his instruments. Something about the fabric of space itself. It's different out here. Alarms blared as the ship's artificial intelligence reported multiple system failures. Navigation is offline, Rodriguez called out. The AI can't plot our position without recognizable reference points. Chen's voice rose above the chaos. Drive cooling systems failing. If we don't stabilize in 5 minutes, we'll lose the core. Amara's training took over. Manual override on all critical systems. Mr. Chen, get that drive stabilized. Dr. Raman, work with Rodriguez on calculating our position the old-fashioned way. Captain, the communications officer interrupted. Something's affecting our quantum entanglement array. We've lost contact with Earth. Amara looked around at her crew. The best humanity had to offer, now completely alone in unknown space. Then we proceed as planned, she said firmly. We've made one impossible jump. We'll make another. The Xerani are still waiting, and we've got a promise to keep. As the crew scrambled to save their ship, something brushed against the outer hull. Not a physical touch, but a ripple in reality itself. The journey had only just begun. After 4 more jumps, each one refined by Dr. Raman's increasingly accurate calculations, the Prometheus emerged at the coordinates specified in the Xerani distress signal. The crew, exhausted from constant system repairs and the physiological strain of full transit, fell silent as the main view screen displayed their destination. A binary star system hung before them. One sun a healthy yellow-white, the other a sickly purple that seemed to bend light around it unnaturally. Orbiting the healthy star were 3 planets, 2 gas giants and 1 smaller world that sensors indicated had a breathable atmosphere. But it was the region around the purple star that drew everyone's attention. The void, whispered Lieutenant Sofia Mendez, the xenobiologist. It wasn't black as they'd expected, but rather a shimmering curtain of not quite reality that had consumed nearly half the system. Where it touched, matter seemed to unravel, its fundamental properties altered in ways their sensors couldn't properly interpret. Multiple artificial structures detected on the third planet, Rodriguez reported. And we're being scanned. Open all frequencies, Captain Okafor ordered. Transmit the first contact package, Dr. Vasily prepared. The bridge crew waited in tense silence. Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization was about to occur, and they were 2.5 million light-years from home. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. It's responding to our linguistic algorithms in real time. The view screen flickered, and they saw the Tsarani for the first time. The alien appeared humanoid in basic form. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. But the similarities ended there. Its body seemed composed of interlocking crystalline segments that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. Where a human would have a face, there was an array of sensory organs arranged in a geometric pattern. When it moved, it did so with fluid precision, as though every motion had been calculated to mathematical perfection. We are the Tsarani Collective, the translation matrix rendered in subtitles beneath the alien's image. Your arrival was unexpected. Captain Okafor stepped forward. I am Captain Amara Okafor of the United Earth ship Prometheus. We received your distress call and have come to offer assistance. The Tsarani's crystalline segments shifted, creating new patterns that the translation matrix interpreted as confusion. You received our memorial archive and traveled between galaxies to assist us. This behavior does not align with any known sentient response patterns. Dr. Vasily joined the captain. We understood that you're facing extinction from an expanding space-time anomaly. We came to help if we can, or to bear witness if we cannot. The alien went completely still. You understood our emotional markers. Your species can interpret subjective experiential data. Yes, Vasily replied simply. Fascinating. Inefficient, but fascinating. The Tsarani segments realigned. We must verify your intentions. Prepare for orbital synchronization. Representatives will board your vessel for direct communication. The transmission ended abruptly. Well, Commander Chen said dryly, they're not big on small talk. 3 hours later, a Tsarani shuttle docked with the Prometheus. The boarding party consisted of 5 Tsarani, each standing nearly 7 feet tall, their crystalline bodies humming with subtle energy frequencies. The humans had prepared the cargo bay as a reception area, with atmosphere adjusted to Tsarani preferences based on the distress signal data. The leading Tsarani approached Captain Okafor and performed a complex series of movements with its upper limbs. We have studied your transmission data, it said through the translator. Your species is barely 300,000 years old. Your civilization is less than 10,000 years old. Your technology is primitive compared to 12 other species in your galactic neighborhood, all of whom ignored our memorial archive. The alien's body shifted to create what the humans would later learn was an expression of profound disbelief. Why did you come? It asked. Captain Okafor's answer was simple. Because you needed help, and we could try to provide it. The Tsarani's crystalline form emitted a sound like wind chimes in a storm, their equivalent of astonishment. You are not what we expected to find in this universe, the Tsarani said. Perhaps that is exactly what we need. The Tsarani research facility orbited the boundary of the void, a massive transparent structure housing technology beyond human comprehension. Captain Okafor and her senior staff stood before a 3-dimensional model of the binary star system, watching as the simulation showed the void's expansion consuming the remaining habitable zones within 60 solar days. We have evacuated 82.7% of our population to our colony worlds, explained Elder Vex, the Tsarani's chief scientist. Its crystalline form pulsed with subtle blue light as it spoke. But the void's expansion is accelerating. Our predictive models indicate it will reach neighboring systems within 3 stellar years. Have you determined what causes it? Dr. Raman asked, studying the simulation with intense focus. The void is a quantum irregularity, Elder Vex replied. It began when our experimental energy matrix destabilized during a harvesting operation on our purple sun. We were extracting vacuum energy for our civilization's needs, a practice we've conducted safely for 12,000 years. Another Xerani, introduced as Engineered Cell, approached with a device that projected detailed schematics of their energy technology. The reaction created a cascade effect that alters the fundamental constants of physics within its boundary. Matter entering the void has its atomic bonds reconfigured. Energy is transmuted into forms our instruments cannot measure. Dr. Raman circled the projection, frowning. You've tried countering with anti-resonance waves. We have attempted 1,247 distinct methodologies, Elder Vex stated. All failed. Our approach to physics is fundamentally harmonic. We build technologies that align with the universe's natural frequencies, but the void responds by shifting to frequencies outside our capability to manipulate. Captain Okafor turned to Raman. What are you thinking, Doctor? Raman's eyes hadn't left the simulation. I'm thinking their approach is too elegant. When the Xerani's translator rendered confused harmonics, he elaborated. Human physics is messy. We don't have your mathematical precision or your technology, so we've had to rely on brute force solutions and counterintuitive approaches. He pulled up data from the Prometheus's sensor readings. You're trying to cancel the void's effects with opposing frequencies, like noise cancellation. But what if instead we overload it? Quantum fluctuation research on Earth suggests that certain particle interactions can create localized pockets of alternative physical constants. Commander Chen joined him, immediately grasping the concept. The Prometheus's drive works by temporarily creating such a pocket. It's how we manipulate spacetime for FTL travel. Precisely, Raman nodded. If we modify our drive to generate a massive quantum fluctuation field directly inside the void, we could create a reaction that forces the altered space to revert to normal physical laws, Chen finished. Elder Vex's crystalline body shifted colors rapidly. The Xerani equivalent of agitation. Impossible. The energy requirements would exceed your vessel's capacity by a factor of at least 30. Not if we use the void's own energy against it, Raman countered, like a controlled feedback loop. Silence fell as the Xerani communicated among themselves through subtle crystalline vibrations. Finally, Elder Vex spoke. Your approach is chaotic, unpredictable. It contradicts established principles of quantum harmonics. That's rather the point, Raman said quietly. Engineered Cell stepped forward. The humans propose using disorder to restore order. It is counterintuitive. But is it possible? Captain Okafor pressed. Perhaps, Elder Vex admitted reluctantly, though our simulations cannot predict the outcome with sufficient certainty. Sometimes certainty is a luxury, Okafor said. We need to start modifying the drive immediately. As the human engineers began explaining their requirements, a younger Xerani approached Dr. Vasily, its form shifting to communication patterns she'd come to recognize as curiosity. Your species consistently suggests solutions that our models would reject as too improbable to consider, it said. Why do you pursue paths with such low probability of success? Vasily smiled. Because improbable doesn't mean impossible, and sometimes the least likely solution is the only one left. This is inefficient, the Xerani observed. Perhaps, Vasily conceded, but it's kept us alive through ice ages, plagues, and our own self-destructive tendencies. We call it hope. Hope, the young Xerani repeated, its crystalline structure briefly resonating with the word. An emotional override that enables action despite unfavorable probability calculations. Something like that, Vasily said, watching as the human and Xerani engineers began their unlikely collaboration. Across the chamber, Captain Okafor caught her eye and nodded slightly. For the first time since they'd arrived, it seemed possible that this desperate mission might not end in failure after all. The central engineering bay of the Serani station hummed with activity as human and alien technicians worked side by side. Over the past 7 days, the Prometheus's drive core had been carefully extracted and transported to the station, where it was being modified according to Dr. Raman's theoretical models. Commander Chen directed the human engineers while Elder Cell oversaw the Serani contribution, their two teams forming an unlikely alliance. The quantum stabilizer needs to be recalibrated to handle the feedback loop, Chen explained, gesturing to the holographic schematics floating between them. We can push it about 40% beyond normal tolerances, but after that, molecular degradation becomes exponential. Cell completed. We can reinforce the structure with our crystalline lattice technology. It will provide additional stability for approximately 73 seconds. That might be just enough, Chen muttered, making the adjustments to the model. Elsewhere on the station, cultural exchange was occurring alongside the technical collaboration. Lieutenant Sofia Mendez had established what she called a crash course in being human for interested Serani. Currently, she was explaining the concept of music to a group of fascinated aliens. You organize sound for non-utilitarian purposes? Asked one Serani, its crystalline form shifting to what Mendez now recognized as their expression of confusion. Exactly, she smiled, hewing up a classical symphony on her tablet. This was composed by a human named Beethoven over 400 years ago. The Serani listened intently, their bodies subtly vibrating in response to the music. When it ended, they remained silent for several moments. The patterns are mathematically imprecise, one finally observed. Yet there is coherence in the imprecision. That's art for you, Mendez replied. Beauty in imperfection. Captain Okafor found Dr. Vasily in the observation lounge, staring out at the shimmering boundary of the void. In the week since their arrival, it had expanded noticeably, consuming another few thousand kilometers of space. The Serani historian has been teaching me about their civilization, Vasily said without turning. They've existed as a unified species for over 50,000 years. No wars, no significant resource conflicts, no ideological divisions. Sounds peaceful, Okafor commented, joining her at the viewport. Peaceful, yes, but also static. They refine rather than innovate, perfect rather than create. Vasily turned to face her captain. They're struggling to understand us. Our contradictions, our willingness to take risks, our emotional decisions, it's all completely foreign to them. Is that helping or hurting our chances? Both, I think. They're skeptical of our methods but fascinated by our irrationality. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Through the viewport, they saw a small Serani vessel approaching the station at high speed, its trajectory erratic. Captain Okafor to the command center immediately came the urgent call over her communicator. When they arrived, they found Elder Vex conferring urgently with other Serani officials. The central display showed the approaching vessel, now clearly damaged. What's happening? Okafor demanded. Dissidence, Elder Vex's translator rendered, its crystalline form pulsing with rapid color changes that indicated distress. A faction that opposes cooperation with your species. They have attacked 3 engineering outposts and stolen experimental weaponry. You have criminals. Dr. Vasily couldn't hide her surprise. Not criminals. Philosophical divergence, Vex corrected. They believe accepting help from a lesser species violates our evolutionary principles. That extinction would be preferable to. The station shuddered as something impacted its outer hull. They'd breached docking bay 4, a Serani technician reported. The security feeds showed 6 Serani entering the station, their crystalline forms modified with what appeared to be weapon attachments. They moved with purpose toward the engineering section, where the drive core was being modified. They intend to destroy your technology and end the collaboration, Elder Vex stated. Lieutenant Mendez and her security team were already moving to intercept, but Okafor held up a hand. Wait, this is their society, their conflict. We should. With respect, Captain, Mendez interrupted. "We understand conflict resolution better than they do." She gestured toward the Xerani officials, who appeared to be in deadlock. Their consensus-based decision-making isn't designed for crisis response. Okafor hesitated, then nodded. "Proceed, but non-lethal measures only." 20 minutes later, after a brief but intense confrontation, Mendez returned with the dissidents contained by modified force fields. "No casualties," she reported, "but I don't think they're interested in talking." The lead dissident's crystalline form pulsed with patterns that the translation matrix interpreted as disgust. "You corrupt our principles by accepting aid from primitives. Extinction with dignity is preferable to survival through dependency." "It's not dependency," Captain Okafor stepped forward. "It's cooperation. Different species, different strengths working together." "Your intervention is temporary," the dissident countered. "When the void is contained, if it can be contained, you will leave, and we will be diminished by having relied on lesser beings." Elder Vex approached the containment field. "And if they succeed where we failed, what does that reveal about our assumptions of superiority?" The confrontation seemed at an impasse until Lieutenant Mendez spoke. "On Earth, we have a long history of conflict," she said quietly. "We've learned something your species hasn't needed to learn: how to rebuild after division, how to forgive." The concept appeared to confuse both the dissidents and officials equally. Why would functionality be restored to units that have violated collective principles? Elder Vex asked. "Because sometimes those who challenge the consensus see truths others miss," Mendez explained. "And because unity found through understanding is stronger than unity imposed by exclusion." As the Tyranny processed this alien concept, Dr. Vasily and Captain Okafor exchanged glances. Perhaps humanity had more to offer the advanced Tyranny than just modified drive technology after all. The final briefing took place in the station's central chamber, where a vast holographic display showed the completed modifications to the Prometheus drive core. 3 days of non-stop work had transformed the experimental human technology into something neither species could have created alone. The core now rested within a delivery vehicle, a sleek Xerani craft reinforced to withstand the void's boundary effects, at least temporarily. The delivery craft will reach the calculated focal point in approximately 6 minutes after launch, Engineered Cell explained, indicating a pulsing point within the void's shimmering expanse. Once positioned, the modified drive must be activated in a precise sequence to initiate the quantum cascade. Dr. Rama nodded, studying the simulation that showed the theoretical result: a massive energy wave that would reset the altered physics within the void to their normal state. "The calculations are sound. If everything works as projected, the void should begin collapsing within seconds of activation." The chamber fell silent as Elder Vex shifted its crystalline form to a deeper blue hue. "There remains one final obstacle. The delivery craft's guidance systems cannot function within the void. The final approach and activation sequence must be completed manually." Captain Okafor frowned. "You're saying someone needs to pilot the craft?" "Correct. And they cannot return." Elder Vex's translator rendered its tone as regretful. "The energy release will be immediate and total. No shielding could protect organic or crystalline life." The implications settled heavily on the assembled group. Commander Chen was the first to speak. "I helped design the modifications. I should." "No," Dr. Raman interrupted. "The theoretical framework was mine. The responsibility is mine," Captain Okafor said firmly, silencing them both. "As commanding officer of this mission, the final duty falls to me." Protests erupted from both humans and Tyranny. The debate might have continued indefinitely if not for Elder Vex's resonating tone cutting through the clamor. "Your willingness to sacrifice yourselves, it is..." The Tyranny paused, searching for the right concept. "Unexpected. Our models predicted you would abandon the mission once personal survival became incompatible with success." "Then your models don't understand humans very well," Okafor replied. "Evidently not." Elder Vex approached her. "There is perhaps an alternative. Not to the sacrifice, but to its finality. The Tsurani explained their proposal, a neural interface developed over millennia for knowledge transfer between Tsurani, modified to connect the pilot's consciousness with the Tsurani collective during the mission's final moments. Your neural patterns would be experienced by our collective, Elder Vex clarified. Not preserved, not continued, but witnessed, remembered with perfect fidelity. Engineer Patrice Mondi, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. You want to experience what it feels like to die. We want to understand. A younger Tsurani answered. This choice, to knowingly end one's existence for others, it has no parallel in our experience. Captain Okafor considered the proposal carefully. Would this interface affect my ability to complete the mission? No, it would be passive until the final moments. Then I accept. The preparations moved quickly after that. While Tsurani technicians adapted the neural interface to human physiology, Okafor said her goodbyes to the crew. To Dr. Vasily, she entrusted command of the Prometheus for the journey home. To Mondi, she gave her family medallion, asking him to return it to her daughter on Earth. As the captain prepared to board the delivery craft, Elder Vex approached with one final question. Why? Not only you, but all of you. Why would your species cross galaxies and sacrifice lives for beings you never knew existed until recently? Monji answered before Okafor could. There's an ancient human story, he said, about how fire was stolen from the gods and given to humanity. The thief was punished eternally for this gift. But without it, we would have perished in darkness. He looked at Captain Okafor. We've always believed that bringing light where there is darkness is worth any price. The captain smiled slightly. What Engineer Mwanji is trying to say is that helping others is part of what makes us human. It's not rational, it's not efficient, but it's who we are. The farewell ceremony was brief. Captain Okafor boarded the craft wearing the neural interface, a delicate web of crystalline filaments encircling her head. The Tsurani gathered in their collective meditation chamber, preparing to witness her experience. The human crew stood at attention as the delivery craft launched toward the void. Okafor's voice came through the comm system, calm and clear. Approaching boundary in 30 seconds. Drive systems nominal. Neural interface active. The craft passed through the shimmering barrier, the feed immediately distorting with static. The station's sensors struggled to track its progress, but the trajectory remained true, heading directly toward the calculated focal point. Positioning complete, came Okafor's voice, breaking through the interference. Beginning activation sequence. In the Tsurani chamber, the collective suddenly resonated with new patterns as the neural interface connected. For the first time, they experienced human emotions directly. Okafor's focus, her determination, her acceptance of what was to come, and beneath it all, a profound sense of peace. Activation complete were her final words. It's beautiful in here somehow. Tell my daughter I. The transmission cut off as a pulse of energy erupted from within the void, spreading outward in concentric waves. Where it passed, the shimmering distortion faded, leaving normal space in its wake. The void was receding, and in the silence that followed, the Tsurani collective vibrated with a new understanding of what it meant to be human. 1 year later by Earth's calendar, the United Earth Council chamber was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every nation, colony, and habitat stood in respectful silence as the massive doors parted to admit the Tsurani delegation. Their crystalline forms caught the light, sending prismatic patterns dancing across the walls as they processed toward the central days. The Prometheus had returned to Earth 3 months earlier, bearing news of Captain Okafor's sacrifice and the mission's success. The void had not only stopped expanding but had collapsed entirely, restoring normal spacetime to the Tsurani system and eliminating the threat to neighboring regions. Few had expected to hear from the aliens again. Interstellar communication was difficult enough, let alone contact between galaxies. Yet here they were. The Tsurani had crossed the vast gulf between Andromeda and the Milky Way, using technology far beyond human understanding. Elder Vex led the delegation, its crystalline structure now incorporating subtle asymmetrical patterns that hadn't been present before. Changes the returning crew of the Prometheus immediately recognized as influenced by human aesthetic concepts. Most striking was the second figure, a younger tyranny whose form vibrated with unique resonance patterns. Unlike its companions, this tyranny moved with less mathematical precision, its gestures carrying an almost human expressiveness. President Alvarez stepped forward to greet them. On behalf of United Earth, I welcome the representatives of the Tyranny Collective to our homeworld. We are honored by your presence. Elder Vex performed a complex series of movements that the human xenolinguists recognize as a formal greeting, beautifully executed but traditional. The second Tyranny, however, extended its upper limb in a distinctly human gesture, a handshake. I am Nexus. The translator rendered its resonant tones. I speak for the Tyranny with the voice of one who has been changed. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Nexus explained its unique status. Following Captain Okafor's sacrifice, the neural patterns captured during her final moments had created unexpected resonances within the Tyranny collective consciousness. Nexus had been the most strongly affected, developing a partially individualized awareness, something previously unknown among the Tyranny. I carry echoes of Captain Okafor's perspective, Nexus continued. Not her memories or identity, but her way of experiencing reality. Her humanity. Dr. Vasily, now heading Earth's Xenological Research Division, stepped forward. We had no idea the neural interface would have such profound effects. Neither did we, Elder Vex acknowledged. It has created significant philosophical reconsideration within our collective. President Alvarez guided the delegation to the conference table where the formal discussions would begin. You've traveled an immense distance. What brings you to Earth? Elder Vex gestured, and two more Tyranny approached bearing crystalline containers. Inside each was advanced technology, propulsion systems, medical devices, and power generation methods centuries beyond human development. We bring gifts of knowledge, Elder Vex stated, and a request to establish permanent diplomatic relations between our civilizations. The human delegates exchanged surprised glances. The distance between galaxies made regular travel or communication nearly impossible with current technology. We are developing a method of instantaneous communication across intergalactic distances, Nexus explained, anticipating the question. And we have begun construction of a permanent transit corridor between our galaxies. The implications were staggering. Humanity's impulsive mission to save a dying alien civilization had unexpectedly opened the door to technologies and possibilities beyond imagination. As the formal negotiations proceeded, Nexus requested a moment with the families of the Prometheus crew, particularly Ayanna Okafor, the captain's daughter. In a private chamber, the Tyranny presented her with a crystalline pendant. This contains a resonance impression of your mother's final experiences, Nexus explained gently. Not her thoughts, but her emotional essence in those moments. Ayanna accepted it with trembling hands. What was she feeling? Peace, Nexus answered. Purpose. And most strongly, hope for your future, for humanity's future, and for ours. Later, as the day's proceedings concluded, Nexus addressed the full council one final time. For eons, we believed ourselves to be among the universe's highest life forms. We were wrong. The Tyranny's form shifted to patterns of deep cobalt and gold, colors the human xenolinguists had come to associate with profound respect. You humans are younger, your technology simpler, your lifespans shorter, yet you possess something we never evolved. The paradoxical strength that comes from embracing your vulnerabilities. In our darkest hour, we called out for a savior with great power. Instead, we found humans, and discovered that compassion is the greatest power of all. As the Tyranny delegation departed to their quarters, Dr. Vasily found herself standing beside Lieutenant Mendez, both watching the aliens' crystalline forms disappear down the corridor. Captain Okafor would have loved to see this, Mendez said quietly. Vasily nodded. In a way, she does. Through Nexus, through all of them. Humanity's legacy will echo in another galaxy, perhaps forever. One person's sacrifice, Mendez mused. One species' compassion, Vasily corrected gently. That's what they'll remember most about us. Not our technology or our achievements, but that when they called out into the darkness, we answered. Outside the council chamber, the night sky above New Geneva was clear and brilliant with stars. Somewhere among them, a bridge was being built between galaxies, not just of matter and energy, but of understanding. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, carrying with them the simple truth that Captain Amara Okafor had given her life to prove, that the willingness to help others, even at great cost to oneself, might be the most powerful force in all of creation.